Even though we see like Alice in the OP as basically a robot, it was still pretty weird to see Alice as basically a robot, I'm not gonna lie to you. But anyway, hello everybody, welcome back to our weekly Sword Art Online Alicization War of Underworld Part 2 discussion video. Today we're here to talk all about episode 22, Alice, the penultimate episode. But before we get into it, if you haven't done so yet, consider hitting that sub button. If you've already done that, consider hitting that join button. It'd be super appreciated. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dig into this. Alright, so basically this episode serves as a lot of wrap-up and a slight tease for what's going to come in the finale. But for the most part, it's a wrap-up of everything that has taken place over not just the course of War of Underworld, but basically all of Alicization. It's a lot to wrap up in one episode, and I do think that they do a pretty admirable job. All of the characters are basically in different places by the end, and we see how that, or rather how they're dealing with things in the aftermath of what the holy hell happened. And we basically start with Alice herself. Alice is in a much different place now than she was during Alicization, and I mean that literally and like emotionally and figuratively and all that fun stuff. Like, literally, she is, of course, in our world now, a very different world to the one that she is used to. Even when we see her take a bow, when she sees all the different reporters, she places her hand over her chest, and then she actually reaches for where her sword would be, and then bows. Like, so it's, you could see, like, there's pieces of Underworld that still linger, right? Like, even when she bows, she still reaches for her hilt, like the hilt of her sword. She can't help it. It's just how she's always been. So you see, like, she's sort of bringing Underworld with her, but things are very different now. And there's, like, a tinge of sadness to basically every Alice scene. She is brought forward during this press conference. At least Rinko is there with her, which is great and everything, but she doesn't really know Rinko like that. You know what I mean? It would have been better if at least, like, Asuna or Kirito were there, but obviously they can't be there. So instead, it's got to be Rinko. But because of this, Alice doesn't really have friends here, you know, like, she's brought to this strange land, she doesn't know any of these people. As soon as she is brought forward, she is immediately questioned by the reporters, and they say, like, some pretty, like, the dude asks, like, a fair question of, like, so if she's a robot, can we, like, see inside, like, she, like, take off the headpiece and, like, show, like, what her brain looks like? Which is, like, a little invasive, but again, like, it's a fair enough question. Like, if she's a robot, can we see, like, the robotic side of it? And she's like, oh, okay, cool. So if you're human, can you open up your skull and show that, you know, there's a brain in there? It's like, yeah, that's a fair point, Alice. That's a pretty fair point. And yeah, it's just Alice basically trying to deal with the craziness that comes with being in our world, right? Especially being a creation of which humanity hasn't seen before. Like, the one female reporter is very against Alice in a way that I can kind of see people being in the real world if something like this actually happened. Like, I can't see people being like, they're different from us, right? Because that's humanity. If it's different, we don't like it, right? We get scared. We don't like different. So, of course, Alice is like, no, dude, like, I'm not gonna, like, bow my head and dig my forehead into the dirt just to please you, but I am here with an open hand. I want to know you. I want to understand what it is to be a real worlder. In fact, I have people who I've met who are very dear to me, who are from your world, so we're not so different, you and I, is basically what Alice attempts to say. But you see her at the end of the episode at this, like, gala party or whatever, and you could tell she's not having fun. She's not enjoying herself, and it's very likely something could happen to Alice, as Kikuoka later points out. But you could just tell there's, like, this sadness to Alice. She doesn't want to be here. She's homesick. You know, she wants to go home, and I totally get it. Even that shot of Alice, like, looking out at the cityscape, just out the window, like, basically being trapped inside, it's like she never, like, left, you know? She's not actually free. She's still stuck. You know, she can never quite leave. She's always entrapped in some way. So I thought that was really solid symbolism on the part of the show. But speaking of Kikuoka, we brought Kikuoka up a second ago. We're gonna talk about this now. For a hot second there, I almost lost my shit. I was like, Kikuoka, no! Right? Like, not Kikuoka. Because they show the on the screen, it says, like, and a JSDF officer was killed in the line of action, right? Like, killed in action, like, trying to defend the ocean turtle, and it's Kikuoka. And for a second, I was like, aw, damn. Because we know that he was bleeding out pretty bad, right? Like, during the events of last week. Like, we know that Kikuoka took a bullet, and he, really exerted a lot of energy, but, like, I was thinking, like, he might power through. But then, oh no, it looks like he's dead. And Higa even says, like, of all the people here to be our only casualty, I didn't think it would be you, Kiku-san. Right? It's like, damn it, no! But then Kikuoka, like, strolls up anyway, and he's like, yeah, I know, it's crazy, right? It's like, oh, cheeky. So yeah, Kikuoka's not dead, thankfully. In fact, Kikuoka, like, rocks up looking cooler than ever. The man is wearing, like, these cool shades and, like, an orange Hawaiian shirt. And orange is a youthful color, right? If I might do a little bit of color psych. Orange is a pretty youthful color, definitely representing a lot of optimism, a bit of brashness. And I feel like that is a good indicator of where Kikuoka is right now. Like, being confirmed KIA, it definitely gives him a new lease. He can sort of operate from the shadows, but he isn't necessarily, like, beholden to anybody. He does say that he wants to continue to protect Wrath, the ocean turtle, and Underworld, right? He's going to do everything he can to do that. But the world is Kikuoka's oyster now, right? He's technically off the grid. He's a new man, a new young man, right? A youthful energy to Kikuoka this week, especially when he rocks up with the shades, acting all cocky. It's definitely a side of Kikuoka we don't normally get to see. This sort of, like, optimistic, youthful type of energy. And he was very brash in this decision. Like, this decision to let himself be confirmed as, like, killed in action is definitely a brash decision. But I think it makes a lot of sense given where he is and what he's trying to do. Because he basically says, like, if I didn't pretend to die, then I could get all the blame pinned on me, or I could be eliminated for real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the only way that it could have played out. Like, it had to be this way. But probably the biggest takeaway from the episode is Higa. Higa does something kind of interesting. Basically, Asuna and Kirito wake up this week from their 200-year dive, right? They are trapped in Underworld for 200 years, and their full dive is over. They're opening their whatever it is, like their little pod things are ready, and they open up. And Kirito tells Kikuoka and Higa to erase their memories. And something I really want to point out off the pop is Kirito sounds different. Matsuoka sort of changes his inflection in such a way where you can still tell it's Kirito, but he is far more world-weary. He's, like, more tired, a little bit more distant. He's been through a lot. He's been through 200 years of a lot, right? So his tone is definitely different. And even when he sees Alice again, Kirito just says, like, hey, Selka is waiting for you in Underworld. She put herself into a deep sleep, and she's under the tree in one of the floors of the tower, like, waiting for you. And she's still there now. Like, but he says it not in a way that I thought he would say it. Like, he's still happy to see Alice and everything. It's not so much that he's not. It's more of, like, he's just so tired he can't really even bring himself to be happy about it. He's just like, hey, so this is what happened to Selka, just so you know. Also, Higa, erase our memories. Like, he's just very not having any of it. But neither is Higa, interestingly enough. Higa basically attempts to save copies of Asuna and Kirito's Flucklight. And he doesn't basically copy in time Asuna's. He doesn't get to have Asuna there, but he does copy Kirito's Flucklight. And this is where we meet, who I can only refer to as Digito. And Digital Kirito, or Digito, he says, like, I kind of figured this might happen. Like, he kind of knew Higa or Kikuoka or somebody was maybe going to try to copy him or something like that. So he says, like, I assume this is Higa. And Higa's like, yeah, sorry. All right, but this is, again, as you could probably see by the screenshot I'm using, this is where something interesting happens. Digital Kirito says that he's going to fight to keep Underworld safe. And Higa's like, what does fight mean? He's like, I'm going to do everything I can. Higa, like, that's the plan. But if I'm going to do that, I'm going to need Heathcliff's help. I'm going to need Kayaba's help. And Higa's like, oh, shit. And this screenshot of the two of them, of Kirito and Kayaba, basically they're two... It's not really Kirito, it's Digito, right? It's this digital version of Kirito who is definitely more world-weary, very, like, ancient and wise now, and Kayaba, who has always been very wise. We see these two, and for some reason I just got a bad vibe. I was like, I don't know what exactly is gonna happen, but I'm kind of nervous at the concept of these two meeting. And even Higa says, like, I don't know what the hell will happen when these two actually meet. Like, it's an interesting idea to see, like, what these two beings would do. And he calls them, like, what these copies, but they're not copies at this point, they're people. So, like, what are they going to do? But Higa can't help himself. You know, that scientist curiosity, it gets the best of him, and now he's kind of put himself into this situation where he has to protect Underworld, and he's too curious to see what they'll do. And honestly, so am I. Like, I want to see Kirito and Kayaba, well, Digito and Kayaba talk, right? Just to have him be like, all this time, you have any idea what you put me through? Every adventure's because of you. Everything always links back to you. It's always you. And I just want Kayaba to be like, yeah, bitch, it is because of me. I'm always going to be the main antagonist. And I'm not even really an antagonist. I'm kind of a good guy. Wrap your head around that, Digito. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what this is, what they're going to do with this. They only have an episode left. So part of me's like, I don't think we'll see this for a long time. Maybe we will get to see what they'll do next week, but a part of me thinks, like, maybe they're saving this for something different, like a few arcs from now. I don't know. One of the last things I want to touch on in this episode is Kirito, basically waking back up to the real world and going home. And when we see him in the hospital, he's not good. Like, he's not doing okay. And he's sort of, like, distant, thinking about Underworld and stuff like that, and trying to piece together the memories that were deleted. Like, he can't even really remember them. And Asuna brings him some flowers. And what type of flowers? Why, they're blue roses. Because, of course, they're blue roses, to remind you of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that, it's like, man, Yu-Gi-Oh! My son! I don't want to think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. And... you know, Kirito tells Asuna, like, he'll be discharged in a few days and he can go home, and then he does go home, and he collapses onto his bed and he just cries. And when I say cry, I mean, like, Kirito bawls his eyes out, and he says that he wishes that they had deleted all of his memories so that they could delete the 2.5 years that he spent with Yu-Gi-Oh! Because he can't let him go. Like, he just can't cope with losing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, it haunts him. Like, he really can't get over what happened. And in fairness, like, yeah, like, I understand why Kirito would feel that way. Like, because Yu-Gi-Oh's our boy, you know? I wish I could erase my memories of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because sometimes I get emotional just thinking about the dude. So I do get where he's saying, but at the same time, it's like, no, dude, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Lives on because of you, because you remember him. You and the people who do remember Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, that's how he keeps going, even though he's not here. So I just really loved how they played this scene of Kirito still being so emotionally destroyed about what happened. And Lifa actually shows up in a cool, and basically is, like, acting pretty cool, like, where she says, like, hey, tell me about them, like tell me about your memories, all the good, the bad, tell me everything, right? And Kirito just says, like, I met him in the woods, and he was a woodcutter, and they were trying to chop down a cedar tree for 300 years, and it was like, oh man, like, what a sweet place to end the episode. But then we do get that Alice scene, which is like, uh-oh, that's not good. And yeah, we also end with like a phone call from Rinko to Kirito, so you could tell something's going on. But the fact that like the main part of the episode ends with them talking about the cedar tree, it's sweet. And I do think that Kirito is probably going to end up meeting Digito at some point. And maybe like their memories will fuse or something. I don't really know. But what I do know is he's not good. Kirito's not okay right now, and I don't blame him. That said, I do have some stuff that I'm a little disappointed with this week. Like, not overly, just some stuff that I'm like, man, I kind of wanted this to happen, or man, I didn't really like the way that they did this. For me, it's really just two big things. As you can probably see by the screenshot I'm likely going to be using, I'm kind of bummed that this episode wasn't just about Kirito and Asuna. Like, I kind of just wanted Kirito and Asuna this week. Like, I didn't really... Not that I didn't care, it's just I didn't really want to see the Alice stuff until next week. Like, I just kind of wanted the penultimate episode to show the 200 years, right? Like, we get brief snippets of it, and we know that Kirito calls Asuna her majesty, right? Like, his queen and stuff like that. And it's like, wow, so they became, like, the rulers of Underworld. Which, in fairness, like, of course they would become the rulers of Underworld. But it's cool the way it's played off, and it's 200 years of the two of them just sort of being in Underworld and taking care of things. But we don't really get to see a whole lot of it. Like, we just get told that, like, yeah, it was 200 years, they became king and queen, and that's kind of it, right? Like, we don't really see much. We see that Kirito has, like, a fist fight with Ishkan, which basically unites the two worlds of Underworld, right? But that's about it, and I'm a little disappointed. Like, I really would have liked to have seen how everything like shakes up. Like what happened with Sheita and Ishkan, right? Like what happened with like Tease and Renly. Like what happened with all these different characters. Like, I want to see that, but we don't really get to see that. What happened with Berkuli's kid, you know? Like, there's a lot of stuff that I would have liked to have seen that we just don't really have the time to get into because we have to focus on all this other stuff. I assume that there's probably, like, light novels or chapters of the light novel that dig into the 200 years. We don't really get time for that. Maybe in an OVA. That'd be kind of cool. I'd be up for an OVA. But, yeah, there's that. And the other thing that I'm just going to briefly kind of talk about, because I know this bugs some people want to bring it up, but I have to. Alice straight up saying that she loves Kirito is really stupid. Like, no, I don't like that at all. I get that she has history with Kirito, but don't forget that she knew the dude for like a few days, and then he was comatose for months. And then he showed up and saved the day. Like, I get that she would have a deep connection with Kirito, and I get that she would view him as, like, somebody important, but somebody she's in love with? He was comatose most of the time she knew him. Like, that's a little weird. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't really like that much. I guess Kirito's such a charmer that even when he can't speak or move all that well, he'd still be charming as hell, I guess. I don't know. I don't like when they try to push that other characters, like, when they say, like, I love him. Like, when Liz says, like, I realize that I love Kirito. It's like, Liz, shut up. And now Alice saying the same thing. It's like, Alice, shut up. Like, no, you don't. Like, when they say love, I'm going to just pretend like they mean platonically, even though it's very clear Alice means romantically. But, yeah, I'm going to pretend like every time that these other girls say they love him, they mean platonically, because... yikes. But with that said, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then don't forget to boop that up snoot and share if you care. And of course, as always, I have to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all of these beautiful names. And hey, if you would like to join these beautiful people, there are now 2 ways to do so. The first is by checking out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. And the second, for just a little bit more, is to hit that join button next to the subscribe button. That gets you some emotes to spam in the comments and premieres, as well as a nifty badge next to your name in the comments and premieres. So if that sounds cool to you, then go ahead and hit that join button. It'd be super appreciated, or check us out over on Patreon. Either way, both of those help out tremendously, and I would super appreciate it. But with that said, everybody, that's basically it for me. So I'm curious to see how we wrap up Alicization next week. It'll be interesting to see for sure. But until then, you stay classy, AnyTube, and you wash your dang hands.